Quick swig before we get started. Hello friends, thank you for joining me again today. So this is one of those weeks where my interruptions have interruptions. So interrupting my oil painting, I'll be doing more of that later. For a quick, I didn't know what to call it, a commercial pen and ink rendering for some of you who prefer to watch my pen and ink work. So this is going to be fairly simple, but let's get official. This is Daily Art Adventure number 817, pen and ink commercial rendering. The date is January 24th. Woohoo! There. Yeah, I'll go ahead and move you guys and give you a better angle here. All right, let me show you what it means to be a commercial artist, would be the broadest term, or a landscape renderer. I used to do a lot of real landscape, I used to do a lot of architectural renderings, people building houses. I've done scores of them over the years. Then the 2008 Depression hit, and that career path ended. And I've done just a little bit since then. But I do have one client who does landscape rendering. So just to give you an idea of the process. So he emailed me all these 8 photographs, and they're very confusing. But my client came to my house yesterday, and while he was here looking at these photographs, I did this very rough sketch. Okay, this is while he's sitting at my elbow, and we're talking about everything, and I'm going, yeah, how about this and that, and blah, 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 blah. Okay, so then today, my client, of course, is gone, and the next thing I did was transfer my second sketch from this to this. Right, you with me so far? And then I did my wonderful light table magic trick, which means I turn on the light table and I turn over the paper and I draw it in reverse. Now this is a huge, huge trick, benefit, advantage. I'll turn off this light now. So the drawing you're seeing now is a mirror image to this one, but it's way cleaned up. You see, I even drew a vanishing point right there, and you know, the perspective is supposed to be right, and so on and so forth. And then I took a picture of this. No, I scanned it into my computer and flopped it back the other way, cleaned it up a little bit, sent it to my client, said, what do you think? And he said, the only change he made right here was these stones. Got it. So then I scanned this into my computer and printed it off. This is what you see here on the back of my drawing paper. Are you with me so far? So this will now be, so what I'm seeing through this piece of drawing paper is a inkjet print of my sketch. I made it slightly larger. I wanted it to be bigger, right? So for those who are counting, this is the 1, 2, 3, this is the fourth drawing, fourth rendering of this scene. And it's a backyard with a pool, a wall, a knee wall, it's called, another knee wall, actually 3 knee walls, a fire pit, patio, step, pool, and a great big wall, and a little bit of plant landscape stuff in front of the wall. All right, so that's what my client is looking for to show to his client. And right off the bat, I have a very important decision to make. And that is this going to be a ruler illustration? So let me reach back here. Is this going to be the kind of illustration where I use rulers to make all my lines straight, or is this going to be a freehand illustration? And it's mostly a matter of style. Generally speaking, and I'm sure there's exceptions to this, but generally speaking, you don't mix the two. If you start out with a ruler, you stay with a ruler. If you start out by hand, you stay by hand. So obviously, the rendering, if I don't use a ruler, the overall rendering is going to be more wiggly, right? The lines won't be perfectly straight. It'll be, let me use some other words, it'll be a little more artsy, or artsy. 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 Fabulous. Fabulous, darling. Of course, and it's quicker to do it without a ruler. I'm thinking, sorry to waste your time while I think. Yeah, I'm going to do it without a ruler. I thought I was, but I wasn't sure. All right, so now let's talk about tools. I'm going to use this. Let me get this. I just have tape on here. For some reason, the tape was here to mark it on an earlier project. Don't need that anymore. The pen is called, cleverly named, I'm being facetious, Pen and Ink Sketch. I would not have voted for that name if I'd have been on the marketing committee. The next question is, why did I spatter ink all over everything when I took that off? The next question is, what kind of ink is in it? And I'll tell you that before I started the broadcast, I tried 2 different kinds of ink. I did this and this. And it turns out this is wonderful ink. It doesn't clog your pen. It's pretty nice. But it's not waterproof. Yikes. So I took this out, put this in, tested it on a piece of paper like this. Here's the kind of test that I did. All right, so piece of scrap paper, then rub it. Oh yeah, I mean I'm rubbing it off, but that's because I'm rubbing it hard. So Yahoo, so it's waterproof. So I went with this kind of ink. Basically, Ultra Draw Techno Art waterproof drawing ink. It even says waterproof on there. Oh, one of the warnings I have for you though is you can't always trust the label. If it says waterproof, don't always believe it. Sometimes it is, and sometimes what their idea of waterproof and yours might be 2 different things. That's just a word to the wise. And then for the fine art, for the fine lines, I'm going to wimp out, and instead of using like a fancy rapidograph pen, which is an antique to most of you, filled with India ink, instead of using that, I'm going to go the easy way and just use a accurate, professional, waterproof, technical pen. Permanent, acid-free, non-fading, and they already said waterproof. I've used these quite a bit in the last couple of years, so I know they're waterproof. All right, so let's get started then. Light back on. Oh, and the glove, of course, is to protect the paper from the oils in my hand, not, as some people have guessed in the past, not to protect my hand. I'm sorry, I can't say it with a straight face. It is not to protect my hand from the paper. I'm sorry. That just strikes me as so funny. That dangerous, you know, that toxic pen and ink stuff, toxic ink and paper stuff. You got to watch out for that. I'm being as sarcastic as I don't need to be that sarcastic. But anyway, some people in years past have thought maybe that the glove was to protect my hand. No, no, it's to protect the paper. All right, so what you see me doing here is drawing, because I really want to start drawing the wall at the back. But before I draw the wall, there are some trees in front of the wall. So I'm drawing those trees first. They're kind of like crepe myrtles, I would think, which are called different things in different parts of the world. And I think I'll do these columnar junipers. I've learned a few names of trees in my years of working with landscape designers. Not much, believe me, not much. I am not a horticulturalist or an arborist. I know a few names of a few trees and bushes. I don't even try very hard to memorize them. And as you can see, I am indeed using the sketch grip because the part of the drawing that I'm doing right now is these bushes, these trees are free and expressive. They fit the loose description more than tight. Well, we'll be into tight soon enough. So when you hold your brush, so it's basically, or pen brush, when you hold it side saddle, basically like this, and then I just tuck it, in this case because it's so short, I tuck it under my ring finger. You can do it any way you want, but what that creates is, in order to move the pen, I'm not moving my fingers. I'm not doing this, right? My fingers are stable, and I'm moving my whole arm. And as I've said many times in the past, the part of your arm, the part of your brain that controls your arm is a better artist than the part of your brain that controls your fingers. All right, that's enough. Now I am, however, graduating to the control grip, or the drawing grip. And here's where the difference between a ruler drawing and, oh, believe me, I've done plenty of ruler renderings. That's a good name for them. I've done plenty of ruler renderings in my day. That is, every straight line, even the lines between the bricks, every straight line, you use a ruler. Okay, and it creates, of course, a much more technical, much more precise feeling drawing. The thing I want to point out here is the way that I'm moving now, the way that I'm drawing straight lines. Okay, if you watch me often, we've been through this before. Hello, Lady Grammy. Good to have you on board. Human beings are completely incapable of drawing straight lines without a ruler or a computer, right? We cannot draw straight lines. Don't despair. It's because, whoops, let me look at the photograph here, see if I'm doing the top of this fence right. Oops, I am not. Oh, glad I looked. Okay, we'll fix that part in Photoshop. Human beings cannot draw straight lines. You with me so far? I'm looking at, I referenced the photograph here. So the only kind of line we can draw is a crooked line. But we can indeed draw two kinds of crooked lines. Attractive ones and ugly ones. So guess which one we want to draw as artists. We want to draw ugly, crooked lines, or attractive, of course. The answer is B. We want to draw attractive, crooked lines. Drawing straight lines without a ruler is not an option because your heart's beating and your muscles are twitching. You can't draw a perfectly straight line. So all you can draw is crooked, but you want to draw nice crooked lines. And the recipe, well, the recipe for drawing, it's easier to do it this way. What is the recipe for drawing ugly crooked lines? Remember, crooked's the only kind you can draw. what's the recipe then? What makes a crooked line ugly? The answer is, you ready? The answer is if you try to draw a straight one. If you try to draw a straight line, it won't be straight because you're a human being. You can't draw straight lines. But if you try to draw a straight one, guess what? It will be an ugly crooked line. So the solution, the way to draw attractive crooked lines, which is certainly what you want to do if you're an artist, is to intentionally draw crooked ones. And that's what I've been doing the whole time here while I've been talking and drawing. I think you can see that. Okay, let me zoom in as close as I can. Can you see all the little irregularities and wiggles and so forth? I'll leave it zoomed in here for a minute. I'm going to switch now to a an O2 pen. Hang on now, I'm going to get in. There we go. Can you see how I'm drawing with kind of a stutter? I'm even picking the pencil up periodically and making little gaps. And then I'm kind of scribbling just a little bit. And let me see how many of these I want to do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I think that's right. All right, I'll continue now. My client is very particular about the boards on this fence. This is the big part of the reason why we're doing this rendering for our client. Is it's the exact texture on this fence. It's a ridiculously high fence. Don't tell anybody I said that. Evidently, it's supposed to be planned to be 12 feet tall, which astounds me that any neighborhood association would approve of such a thing. But that's not my job, so I'll just draw and get paid. If he gets sued, that's not my problem. All right, I can zoom out now. So I think you've seen probably this very important principle. If you're not using a ruler, you understand now, if you're using a ruler, all these rules have changed. If you're using a ruler, then of course you're drawing straight lines, razor sharp, straight as you can get them. All right? And it's mostly a matter of just the feel of the artwork, the technique. I will often, for this particular client, even though the renderings I'm doing for him are really very simple, this is what I would call hi uncle, a very quiet crowd watching the impeachment. The non-impeachment, I might clearly state. Well, I was starting to say something and then I interrupted myself. Anyway. Oops, noise. Hang on, let's get rid of that now. There we go. Oh yeah, I was just saying this is a decidedly simple rendering. It's low level, low budget. Low level art, low budget art, and it is going to have watercolor in it, of course. It'll be, I'll probably do a little bit of shading, cross-hatching texture with my pen, and then probably do watercolor on top of it. Now, I'm afraid this is really getting boring for you guys, so either I end the broadcast soon that's what it looks like so far. I think I'll make this the light coming from the upper left. So I'll do a shadow of that tree on the wall there, and then I'll do some shading on the tree by doing what I call scribble cross-hatching or scribble hatching. Again, because I know some of you, well, many of you, you found me because of my pen and ink video. Then when you came over, you found out, oh, he doesn't normally do pen and ink, he normally does oil painting. I don't want to watch that. Which I think accounts for why I have such a high number of subscribers. And compared to that number, I have a low number of viewers. It's because of false advertising. My one video that went really viral was about pen and ink cross-hatching, which is great. But then when they come to my YouTube channel, they find out I rarely do pen and ink cross-hatching. So that's why I decided to go ahead and do this video here, even though I think this project is pretty boring, frankly. So I'm using the fountain pen to do the thicker lines, the important lines in the illustration, and then using this fine point pen to do details like the lines between the boards and shading. But let's go back now. Let's leave the fine stuff and now, on stonework, like these walls, I think the hand-drawn technique is actually better. It's more realistic than a ruler edge, right? Because as you can imagine, the stonework is not perfectly straight. Got little tiny wiggles in it, right? So if I do another tree, I'm not sure that I will. I should have spelled out for you my practice, my little tricks for rendering foliage in pen and ink. I've got a little formula that I do that has helped me over the years. It's developed, of course, over the years, and it helps me to convey the feeling of trees, bushes, foliage. Now all these angles, most of them, of course, I've worked out ahead of time in my rough sketches. That's why I'm able to draw so quickly now, because I'm more or less just tracing what I've already drawn. I guess I'll just keep drawing, even though, hello, some of you are chatting. And Uncle asks a good question. Do I ever just start watercolor painting without a rough drawing? Yes, I do. Yeah, I know. I never know what my schedule's going to be, Lady Grammy. I think what is the reason I'm able to broadcast as much as I am is precisely because I'm not tied down. I have seriously considered, and if my income were to permit it, I was hoping to start a couple of things, and I may still someday start, like, I don't know, anatomy drawing every Tuesday night or something like that. And that sounds like great fun to me, but at the moment that's more of a dream than a reality, because if I was raking in the dough and could just entertain myself, that would be different than the current reality is that I have to pay the bills. So my life is dictated a great deal by paying the bills. So like today, I'm just going to bring you guys in on what I have to get done today to pay the bills. I will be working on at least one and possibly two oil paintings, the two that I'm working on this week. Oh, this is grass down here. The two that I'm working on this week, which of course are the big old oak tree behind the little old farmhouse and the Hawaii. So I'm certainly going to be working on the oak tree one, because the deadline for Oil Painters of America is midnight tonight, and that's the third painting that I'm hoping to enter into that competition. Enter, and then don't hold your breath. That's my advice to myself. OPA is, in my opinion, the father of them all. It's the biggest, highest level, maybe. Now, I'm sure Portrait Society of America could make the same claim, I'm sure. The ARC, the Art Renewal Center, could also make the same claim. Anyway, Oil Painters of America, roughly 2,500 experienced or professional artists apply to get into the show every year, and fewer than 10% get accepted. I got in one time 2 or 3 years ago. And I missed the deadline last year. The day came and went, and I saw it on my calendar. I went, what? Today's the deadline? Oh man! So the reason I didn't really have anything ready to go last year. So part of the reason, and it took me a long time to figure this out. Part of the reason entering competitions has always been the absolutely the worst leg of my professional career. It's just the administrative detail of getting, jumping through the hoops and doing it is a bother. And but I discovered in this past year, oh, well, here's one of the reasons it's hard for me to enter competitions, is because when you enter a painting into a competition, it has to be a painting that you still own. That is, it can't be for sale in a gallery in your hometown, because the organizers of the competition, understandably, they want these paintings, the paintings that are in their show, they want those paintings to be for sale in the show. So you cannot enter in most shows paintings that are for sale or have sold. For sale outside of the show. Do you understand? So I went, wait a minute. That explains why I don't enter any competitions. It's because I finish a painting, at least until this past year, I finish a painting and swoosh, it's out the door, man. The paint is not dry by the time I'm at the front door of the gallery saying, here's a painting. That has been my experience for the last 15 years. I don't hang on to paintings. They're gone. So, at least that's one reason. And I've second guessed and examined that. Am I just making excuses? And indeed, I might be. But no, that is definitely a factor. I do indeed, I'm a very blessed man. I do indeed manage to pay my mortgage and groceries and goodness knows everything else by selling artwork. So my artwork does not sit around here. I want money, baby. I want money. So this year I'm just biting the bullet and submitting 3 paintings. I won't know until, I forget, June, July, August. Now that can't be right. Anyway, it'll be months before I know if I've gotten in the show or not. So in the meantime, I have to hang on to these paintings that I could be turning into money, or trying to turn into money by selling, right? Does that make sense? Anyway, I should be talking about drawing, not painting, shouldn't I? I have this little trick for drawing grass, horizontal strips of grass. And as you can see, it just gives a little impression of grass. And I'm moving my whole arm up and down real quickly, like that. Uncle 60 asks whether I need to, do I need to frame? The answer is no. They need to be suitable for a gallery, which means the other option, many of the last time I was at the national show, most of the paintings, I was a little surprised. Most of the paintings actually were framed. I virtually never frame my paintings, and every time I find myself having to frame a painting, my determination is renewed not to not to frame paintings. Wow, what a waste of money. Whew. So no, I don't. So if you, the rule is, if it's called, the name is gallery wrapped. If the painting is on a deep stretcher that is 1.5 inches deep or more, and the edges are painted as a part of the painting, not painted black or white or gray or something like that. No, no. The painting wraps around the edges. And of course, I have done that pretty much as a matter of course most of my painting career. Should I turn off this light and let you see what it looks like up front for a minute? So the main thing I still have yet to do, oh, I have to do some background, I forgot. But the main thing yet to do is actually the wall. So let's do some of that. Now I could either do it this way, or I can do it this way. Right? There's not a wrong way to do it. It's whatever suits you. And while I'm at it, I'll do a little bit of shading. And here, I guess, is the reason why this person is building a 10-foot wall, 12-foot wall around his backyard. Evidently he doesn't like his neighbors. I'm being kind of facetious. The house back here is being built. Nobody lives in it yet. So I hope I'm kidding about him not liking his neighbors. But he clearly does not like the idea of having neighbors, so. Let me look at the reference again, make sure I'm reflecting accurately enough. The trees in the back, yeah, okay, sure. All right, I said I was going to show you my trick for rendering foliage, and this is a really small area. But I'm gonna do a bush or a tree, a bushy tree outside this fence. So again, holding my pen in the sketchy grip, I draw a random, and that's hard because human beings don't do random very well. But here's a trick. So I basically, you see, I started here and it went around this way, making what felt like random strokes. Ready? That's step one. Step 2 is now I'm not going to go back the other way. Again, making more random strokes, more or less, on top of the ones that I just made. So then that gives me, I think, a very lacy, organic, and then the double edge. And then the last thing I do is I do dots inside and outside. So outside, those are like leaves that are on very thin stems, or maybe leaves that are blowing off the tree, but I'm really just softening that edge. And then I do, likewise, I do circles inside that, which could be tree holes, sky holes, and or individual leaves. And in this case, I'm going to hint at a stem, a trunk inside that shape as well. So there's the outline in pen and ink of a bush or a tree, right? Then I can do some shading. Let's turn on regular lighting. So I'm going to do simple directional. By the way, just for what it's worth, I'm envisioning my light sources being up and to the left. And for the most part, my first layer of cross-hatching will point in that direction most of the time. Okay, so this is the shady side of this tree. And again, I'm not, as you can see, I'm not trying to stay inside my outline. I let my shading lines go outside the shape a little bit, because again, that softens the edge even more. Now if I want more shading than that, then I typically proceed to do what I call scribble hatching. I could do cross hatching going the other direction, right? But for me, that's a little bit too geometric for a tree. So usually if I do a second layer of cross hatching in foliage in a tree or a bush, I do what I call scribble hatching. So there's my finished quick rendering of a tree or a bush in pen ink. So go around one way, chaotic edge one way, and then go back the opposite direction, then dots inside and dots outside, then shading, and then scribble hatching. There. Does that make sense? That was a good, I don't know if it was good, but there's a quick lesson maybe for somebody on a quick way to do. And of course, you can get a whole lot more realistic. I'm not pretending that achieves a hyper-realistic view of a bush or tree. Not at all. No, no, no. It's a stylized rendering of a bush or a tree, right? And as you can tell, the trees that I'm indicating, these are tall trees, and indeed I've looked at the photographs to make sure that I'm keeping the general feel, and I am. And the closer they get to the edge, the more abstract they become, do you see? So I don't want people looking at this drawing and saying, ooh, trees in the distance, right? That is not the point. All right, I think I'm finished tracing. I'm finished with the basic outline, all the outlines. The only thing I have to do now is the shading and details. And again, in this particular case, the treatment of this wall in the background is quite important. It's 5.5-inch boards down here and 4-inch boards at the top, or yeah, 4-inch boards at the top. So again, if I didn't tell you that, you would never have caught it. But you see how the boards down here are wider and these are narrower? That's important. That's an important element. And let me see. So I want to make this, I want to do some shading back here, some real simple stuff. Yeah, and I think I'll do the house. I was wondering whether I should do shading around the house and leave the house light. And obviously I decided not to do that. I decided to do the house dark except for the window. Leave the window light, at least for now. I can change my mind after I look at it. And what you see me doing here is, again, a trick that I have. I told you a while ago that if I have the light source, the sun, is up and to the left, then my simple one layer hatching, it's not cross hatching, but hatching, points that way, right? I'll do some, I'll be consistent with that trick. So this is the shady side of this little roof, points at the light source. This is just my trick. You do not need to do this at all. If you want to take advantage of my years of experience, feel free. But if you say, nah, I want to do something different, then feel free, of course. You don't have to do what I do. This is not a hard and fast rule. It's just a little trick, a trick of the trade that I think works well. I don't expect anybody, I expect no one to look at my sketch and say, oh, look, all those little lines point at the sun. Are you with me? That is not the idea. But I do happen to think that, in fact, subconsciously or unconsciously, and in fact does reinforce the light source. All right, so that's what I normally do for my shading. The stuff that is far away, a mountain, a hill, a tree, a cloud, or in this case, everything on the far side of this fence, however, gets a different treatment. I'm doing horizontal cross hatching. And again, if there's no cross, I think it's just hatching. But we don't usually use that expression. Do you understand? If I don't do lines going the opposite direction, which cross these lines, then technically is it cross hatching? And I think technically, no, it is not. But let me explain for a minute, why am I doing for objects that are in the distance? Why do I do, because as you can probably imagine, there is method to this madness. Why do I do horizontal lines for shading, pen and ink, for objects that are far away? So glad you asked. And the answer is intentional and simple and thought out. It is this. Horizontal lines are peaceful. You know this, don't you? This is universal. This is not a Dan Nelsonism. This is not Dan Nelson. This is universal art professorism. Okay, the most peaceful line in a drawing or painting is horizontal. A vertical line is considerably more energetic than a horizontal, but a diagonal line is, my pen's down, is the most energetic. So this down here is like, ah, yeah, of course, and I'm just talking about straight line. That's just that's somebody's mouth going, ah, it's extremely energetic. Vertical is slightly energetic, and horizontal is somebody is sleeping. Okay, so horizontal, peace. Vertical, medium. Angle, high energy. All right? So by using only horizontal marks for the faraway objects, it causes them to recede into the background because the marks are more peaceful because it's horizontal. At least that's my story, and I'm sticking with it. My guess is nobody listening has ever heard such a thing in their entire life. And I go, yeah, well, that's what I'm here for. Again, for what it's worth, which is maybe precisely nothing, the majority of my adult life was spent doing pen and ink. I have drawn, I'm sure, millions of lines. I've spent entire days doing nothing but drawing, cross-hatching. So I might be wrong in my theory, but nevertheless, it is a theory born out of extreme experience. Okay? So if you want something to look like it's far away, peaceful horizontal cross-hatching. Whereas all this stuff that's up close, again, my first layer of hatching, and I don't know if I'm going to do any cross-hatching, quote unquote, whether I'll be doing any cross-hatching in this rendering. My guess is I will not. And then, of course, I haven't said anything yet about coming in here. Like, this is supposed to be dirt, natural area in the garden back there, right? So I'll do a little bit of dots and circles. Dots don't do the job all by themselves, but dots and little tiny circles combined convey a sense of texture. And I'm going to put shading on all these bushes back here. Real simple. All right, you guys are being most patient. And I don't know yet if I'm going to continue broadcasting into the watercolor or not. Maybe I will. Several of you say to me, somebody says occasionally, some buddies say, more watercolor. So I guess I'll keep going, and I've got to get this job done. As you can imagine, this is not a high budget assignment. And that means you don't sit around, you just put your head down and get her done. Thank you, Larry the Cable Guy. I'm not giving you my endorsement of Larry the Cable Guy, but most of us have heard of him. He is funny, I'll say that. Let's do some more shading up here in the distant part of the scene. And I'm going to leave this particular tree trunk, since I drew it rather carefully. I'm going to leave it light so we get just a little bit of now, everything I'm doing in this rendering is what I would call low budget, simple pen and ink rendering. I mean, I can do pen and ink cross hatching that is much more accurate or sophisticated, might be a word, careful than this. This is my down and dirty, sloppy, again, get her done. This is not a high budget job, so I'm not inclined to spend high budget time. My client, I've done a lot of renderings. He does not expect. This is what he expects. In fact, this is actually a little bit more fancy than what he normally gets from me. And he'll be fine with it, I'm quite sure. Sorry, I had to think there for a second. Thinking done. Commence with drawing. Anybody else? Oh, good. Lady Grammy wants to see the watercolor. Yes, Barbara, of course. This is a. I want to say. I would not draw something like this if it wasn't in order, if I wasn't being paid for it. It doesn't quite make the grade of, you know. I love doing real architectural renderings in pen and ink, but that's not what I would. This is not real. This is not very artsy. Hey, Yeah, Barbara, go enjoy your walk. Oh, Uncle, I'm sorry. So for you latecomers, client came yesterday. I did this sketch from these photographs while my client sat here at my elbow. This morning, then I did this, even though this doesn't look any neater than this, it actually is. And then I turned it over, traced it, and cleaned it up a great deal. And did use a ruler for this. And then I enlarged it and flopped it in my computer. And that's what I'm tracing. That's on the back of this. I guess, yeah, I'm done with that. So I can actually show you that this is what came off my inkjet printer, right? Which is simply an enlargement and a flop. Because, right? Anyway, that's enough. I'm breaking my rule right now and having my cross-hatching go the opposite direction. Shh, don't tell anybody. And again, even this cross-hatching that goes both directions that I'm drawing, that's again, that's what I call cheap cross-hatching. That is not high dollar cross-hatching, like what I'm doing again right now. Do you know what I'm talking about? Here, let me diagram that just in case somebody's, what are you talking about? Okay, most of the time, real cross-hatching, you only draw with the downstroke. I'm using a big fat pen, so that's okay. And then cross-hatching, of course, it goes across. All right, I have a whole video on that. But when you're keep the pen or whatever on the paper, both directions, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, like that. That's what I call low budget cross. Now it has a certain feel. I'm not denigrating the technique. It's just a different technique than the more high dollar cross hatching. I've never used that term before. High dollar cross hatching. It's faster to do the scribble because your pen is drawing in both directions. And generally speaking, you do not mix the two, but I am mixing the two a little bit in this particular job. Again, an indication that this is a fairly low budget illustration. I keep saying that, and I don't mean to. I'm just wanting to help you categorize where does this fit into, say, my career. And the answer is this is a quick, down and dirty, which is exactly what my client wants. I am not charging him, say, $500 for this illustration. He'd be a little dismayed if I sent him a bill for $500. He'd probably pay it, but then we'd probably have a conversation. So I'm not going to do that, of course. And I don't have to take the job, do I? Right? That's part of being an artist, is like, if you take the job, then you do it. The option is you don't have to take the job if you don't want to work for those those rates. But I really do, I've said this often, I really do enjoy the variety of my career. Again, the great majority of my time in the last 15 years has been spent doing paintings, acrylic underneath, oil on top, all this stuff that most of you regulars see me doing. So it's really kind of fun to sit on my butt, pick up, do pen and ink drawing. Okay, I'm nearly finished with the shading part of this. Let's just finish this corner up here, and then I think I'm ready to watercolor. Hello, Drain. There's a new name. Somebody's speaking up for the first time. Good to have you with us. Thanks for making a chat. All right. Phew. Let's move on to other stuff, shall we? I have right over here at my left elbow, I have my watercolor kit. I sprayed it a few minutes ago. Oh, by the way, this is just for fun and grins. I mentioned to some of you a while ago, I bought this particular watercolor tray, Grumbacher watercolors. I bought it in 1972. I was a freshman in college. Isn't that crazy? Yeah. And I didn't replace it. I have since replaced it. It is now part of my travel kit. I just grabbed it this morning because hang on, I'm going to get you guys positioned right here yet. All right, I need to do some thinking now before you don't just talk. Think. I better think. And I have misplaced, in this case, a roll of toilet paper. It's around here somewhere, I promise. Oh well, I'm not going to waste your time looking anymore. Having a tissue or a Kleenex oh, here it is. I just found it. I stuck it in a clever spot. All right. When I do watercolors, I typically have a brush in one hand. And no, I give up all pretense of doing the two-handed thing with watercolor because I was a watercolorist for 40 years and before I started the two-handed thing. Okay, the glove is gone now. And so when I pull out watercolors, I'm basically tapping back into my old life. And in my old life, I did not do two-handed, right? That only started at about age 50, about 15 years ago, maybe even later than that. All right, I think I'm going to start with this wall, since that's such an important part of this rendering. And again, this is a low budget watercolor painting. I'm not going to do much of anything fancy. I'll probably come back after this dries and do a little bit of shading on it. At the moment, I'm leaving the vertical boards white, just so that the structure of the fence of the wall pops out clearly. Okay, enough of that. I guess let's do green grass next. Generally speaking, I think grass is usually a warmer or yellower green than, generally speaking, than bushes and trees. So I'm doing the grass with a yellowish pale green. Spring green is maybe decorator, designer name for this color, perhaps. It might be worth noting for some of you, maybe early journey watercolorists, I'm doing all of this so far with a 1-inch flat. Some of you would not have expected that. Oh, let's look at the photograph here. Where did it go? Here it is. Let's look at the color of the the stonework. Okay, I can throw out all these sketches, can't I? Yep, put them in the recycle bin. Yeah, as I thought. The edge of the pool is gray, but all the rest of the stuff is a pale grayish brown. Kind of a predictable, boring stone color. So I am not going to sweat over that a whole lot. It's just oops, off the screen for a second there, sorry. Now on a low budget sketch like this, I feel like it's completely unpretentious. I give myself permission to break any watercolor rules that I want to. I will use opaque late in this process, whether it's just white gouache or even a whiteout pen, or what else was I going to say? Anyway, I'll give myself permission to use white. Again, the people are not looking for a Watercolor Society of America rendering. Of course, non-artists have no idea what that is. Have no idea what I just said. So I'm mixing up a very dull greenish gray, grayish green for this background. What next? Okay, down with the 1-inch brush. So far, everything I've done has been with a 1-inch brush. Let me see what kind of point I get. Yeah, this will do. So the next thing I'm going to do is, I think, is the brown ground cover, earth, soil, whatever, underneath all the bushes back here, okay? And then the last thing I'll do in this area will be the green bushes themselves. Again, pretty much everything I'm doing here is designed to just get the job done. Quick. It's a little bit dark over on this end, so I'm going to blot it up a little bit with a tissue. Here. Good enough? All right. Rinse out that brush, and let's proceed to more intense green now for the bushes. And if you, whoops, I'm going to get some bleed if I do that, which is maybe okay, but I want to be careful about how much it bleeds. If you want, sorry, I'm off the picture again. Let me move myself. If you want your foliage, your bushes, your trees to have just a little bit more air of realism, of reality, then you should paint them different shades of green. Does that make sense? And indeed, I'm going to do that, but I'm going to do it by, again, for the sake of speed, I'm just going to slap all the bushes with the same green, and then because it's watercolor, then I'll come back and do a second or third shade of variation on some of the bushes. Fair enough? And again, I'm blotting up a little bit. So because I'm broadcasting, when I finish, I don't think I'm getting a count. Do I get a count, a time? No. I'll know exactly how long it took me to execute this little quick rendering. So that's kind of interesting for me. Like, oh, it took me 1 hour and 20 minutes, or 2 hours, or 55 minutes. I honestly don't know how long I've been going. But when it's done, I will know. That's always slightly interesting to me. Back in the day when I was a full-time illustrator, which I was for many years, I literally kept track of every minute. In that regard, I miss those days. The structure of it, I miss a little bit. I'm trying to mix up a neutral gray here. Down to 5-minute increments anyway, because I often charged by the hour. And even if I didn't charge by the hour, I wanted to know for my own records how much time I spent on each and every job, and then how much per hour I made. That's a little bit too dark, so you see why I have a tissue in my hand. As a watercolorist, a brush in one hand and a Kleenex in the other. Because I do that a lot. I overpaint, paint too heavy, don't worry about it, and then lift up. Now, I think I can go right ahead and do the pool, the water, I mean, in the pool. And I will certainly do some white on top of this. And I'm actually thinking, I'm premature. I'm thinking about just using literally a whiteout pen for highlights on this illustration. Wouldn't that be crazy? Such a crude instrument. Yeah, I'm going to make this roof here. This is, and as you can, I hope, see, kind of an aerial view of this person's backyard, right? And what that means is the view is from above the client's house. And so this is just part of the gable facing wise. So we're looking down on the roof. Again, just trying to help the client get a perspective. I want our client to be able to glance at this illustration and not have to work real hard to see what's what and think about what's what. So a lot of the stuff that I talk about other times about, you want 20% of your audience, or of people who might see not your real audience, but you want 20% of the population to not get it. Well, that doesn't count for this kind of illustration. I want this illustration to be easily interpretable. Can I make up words? Is that all right with you? You know I'm going to do it anyway, so you might as well say yes. I want people to be able to glance at it and say, oh, yeah, get it, I got it. Because that's the purpose of this kind of illustration. It's not to be artsy or clever. This is most certainly not, interesting marks. It's not the highest priority. Even though I talked quite a bit at the beginning about how to draw straight lines. So I'm just doing here with a fairly neutral brown on my, that's too dark, on my brushes. I'm just trying to indicate the shady side of these structures. And again, I'm almost embarrassed. I don't want anybody to think that this is like some great masterpiece. The only thing I would stand up for with this illustration is like, well, I did it in an hour and a half or whatever. I don't know what the time has been, but that is to say, I did it quickly. It's as good as I can do if I'm in a race, which I in fact am. Does that make sense? Not a masterpiece by any means. Now I have one other little trick. So now I don't like this brush. I like it fine. I just mean I don't like that. I am very partial, and this may be a weakness, but I am in watercolor. I am very partial to flats. I've wondered often if that was like, is that just a artistic immaturity? Why is it just a rut? But then I saw, I can't remember now who it was, but it was some what I call big dog, famous watercolorist, and he painted the way I did in this regard. He used flats a lot, like almost exclusively, which is what I do. Okay, so it's getting a little bit of dimension. Can you see that? Getting a little bit of seeability. And I think I'm just going to leave, the edge around the pool white, because it's actually a very pale gray in reality. I don't know, I may rethink that, but at the moment, that's my inclination. Oh, while I've got this nice pale blue on my brush, sure, let's do a hint of sky. Like you guys talking. Aha, drain. Somebody. Wow, I have to go back and read all your comments. I look forward to doing that. Drain. I saw some of them about art class, about watercolors for commercial use, and so on. Very interesting. In my experience, watercolor is a very, like architectural renderings are traditionally, I would say, traditionally done in watercolor. They can be done in anything, but most traditionally done in watercolor. Now everything, of course, is done on computer, so that people only hire me to do, in my observation, they hire me to do renderings when they want an anti-computer feel. Okay, people are expecting an old-fashioned, so to speak, hand-drawn, hand-rendered. In fact, I typically, with this particular client, and kind of a funny note, I typically sign these works, not because I'm proud of them particularly, but because it adds a certain panache, authority, credibility. It's a sales, it's a sales tool. My client is using my illustrations to get these jobs, right? This particular one, I think he's already got it, but I'm really part of their marketing plan, right? And so I sign often, again, not because I think it's all that much. I don't think it's all that, but I'll sign it because that serves my client's ends. I want to make him look like a big shot. Does that make sense? All right, now one thing I talked about and haven't done yet, let's go in and make various of these bushes slightly different color. So I'm mixing up a pale blue right at the moment, and certainly a columnar juniper, like a spruce. Even if it's not a blue spruce, has a bluish tint to it. And let's just pick some of the bushes to make them bluer. Then I'll maybe perhaps predictably come back in a minute and make some of the other bushes yellower. So once again, do you see the splotches of blue that I just put there? Those are, in my opinion, way too intense. And again, so I do this a lot. I put too much pigment down. That's just a part of my normal watercolor technique. Go ahead and slap it down. Don't sit and think and paint. Don't pussyfoot around. I don't even know what a pussyfoot is, but I know what it means, so to speak. Yeah. Just slap something down. Don't sit and think about stuff. Just slap it down, and then half the time after slapping, post slap, you say, "Wait, that's too intense. That's too much." No problem, says the man with the tissue in his hand. Get it? Okay, I thought that perhaps I wouldn't use any gouache, but I'm changing my mind. It's one very, very simple element, and that is flowers on the bushes. So bear with me a second. I go back in the corner and get my gouache kit. All right, you with me? So I really only want probably red, maybe red and yellow, so I'll just spray those 2 or 3 pans. And get that out of the way now. It's over there to my left where my watercolor tray was. And let's just hit several of these bushes. I don't like the orange as much as I thought I might, so I'm switching now to red. If you're from our part of the country, these would almost certainly be azaleas, but I don't care. I just want the impression of color. See that little bit of color adds a little bit of color. All right, and as threatened, here's my favorite brand of correction pen. If you want to see that again, Presto, this shape. Not all office supply stores stock those, so I've taken to ordering them like everything else. I've taken to ordering them online. And I'm just going to do a little bit of white, kind of here and there and everywhere. Again, I'm thinking of thinking of light source. But on, let me think. Where do I want to go with this? I don't want to do much. Just a little bit of texture back here in the dirt. I think the part I was thinking mostly of was in the stonework to get just a little bit more feeling of stone. I can also do things like cover up mistakes, like little blooms, blossoms, you know, where the watercolor went somewhere where I don't really like what it did. I think I'll do a little bit along the top rail up here, just again, just get a little bit more pop and definition. Even back here on this house in the background, like. Did you see this where the green spilled down on top of that? So this is a real easy fix, right? I hope some of you are gasping. Oh, I forgot to paint this pot. Bear with me a second. I hope somebody's going, dang, I didn't know we could use I didn't know we could use office supply products on a piece of fine art. Well, there you go. Your day is not in vain. You can. You can indeed. And dang, office supply products are way cheaper than art store products. Do you know that? I mean, the art store will take the same thing you could buy at JCPenney. Are they still in business? I was going to say Sears, and I said, wait a minute, Sears is not here anymore. Anyway, oh, and here the water especially would be helped by having some white reflections going across it. There, now doesn't that look like water? Don't answer that. And these bushes are going to have red and white flowers on them. Anyway, art supplies, and believe me, I love the fact that I live in a town with a really good art supply store in it. Oh my goodness! All I have to do is go on vacation, and find, which in my case always means I'm just doing my artwork somewhere else. This happened to me just a couple months ago in Wilmington, which is not a terribly small town. It's got a university in it and an art department in the university, but my goodness, I could not find what I wanted. So anyway, I'm completely spoiled. So I'm not saying anything bad, but do understand that a lot of the stuff that you buy in an art supply store, you buy an awful lot cheaper at Home Depot or Office Depot or any of those depots. Just stay away from the Art Depot. No, I'm terrible. I have friends. All my friends at Jerry's Artorama would be horrified if they heard me saying that. Well, believe me, I spend at least an average of $100 a week. I know that's true because I do my taxes every year, and every year I spend over $5,000 at this local store. So I hope you understand what I'm saying. I love my art supply, but every once in a while you're smart to go to a hardware store or an office supply store if you can get what you need there. So I'm sorry, I probably shouldn't have taken that detour. Mikey, if you ever hear this, I don't mean a word of it. All right, am I done? I think I am. I'm racing against the clock still. I'm going to sign it, I think, after this is always one of the most fun parts of painting, is when you take off the mask. Not my mask. I'm not wearing a mask. I'm talking when you take off the masking tape. It's a little bit like Christmas, eh? You see the finished work in all its gory glory. Do be careful. Don't pull it too fast. Have I ever ripped the paper? Are you kidding? I've made every mistake in the book. Some of them several times. And there we go. Just a little bit of razzmatazz. It's actually a signed original piece of artwork. If I want to, I don't think I do, but if I want to, of course, I can come in here anywhere and do some more pen and ink. That pen, let me throw out that one. It didn't work so well. All right, there we go. Are we done? I think we are. Thanks for watching. I look forward to reading all of your chats. I see you guys are chatting up a storm. Uncle buys your rough hog hairbrush at the grocery store. Was it connected still to a hog when you bought it? Oh wait, the wrong store. Yep. Okay, just one more thing I'll say about this. I scan this into my computer, of course. Then it's on my screen. Then I'm in Photoshop, right? And in Photoshop, I take an image like this and make it a little bit more contrasty. That might be cheating, and that's what my client will see first. Whoops, I just realized I missed a line. Bear with me a moment. There. So I'm done. Yahoo! I'll be broadcasting again in just a few minutes, I hope, doing oil painting, which I'm very anxious to get to. All right, end of broadcast. Thanks, you guys. Thanks for watching. Love you. Thanks for watching. And I hope to be back later today. And I will look forward to reading all your chats. Bye-bye.